Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. Now today I'm going to be doing something I did a number of years back where I take a look at a magazine, kind of go page by page. And today I'm featuring Rolling Stone magazine issue 395 from May 12th, 1983 with David Bowie on the cover, which is why I picked it up. And of course, look at that headline, David Bowie straight. Yes, at this time, David Bowie's sexuality was a big deal. And of course, it sold magazines. I mean, who wouldn't want to pick up this with that headline? I wouldn't say that it's clickbait, but it's getting near there because the bulk of the article really doesn't go into that. It sort of touches on it in the very beginning, and then it goes more on what David Bowie's doing at this time, but more on that later. Now, 1983, I was about 1 year old when this came out, so I don't really remember any of this, but as a child growing up through the 80s, I have faint memories of a lot of the people they talk about, so it's always a trip for me to go back in time like this through a magazine. So let's get started here. Let me just line up the magazine and we'll turn to the first page here. We got two advertisements, one for Player cigarettes, never heard of them, and then this Panasonic car stereo. I think that must have been a new thing because there are several ads for car stereos, and so especially with this cassette, I mean that was a pretty big deal, having your own music choice. Opening up, so right off the bat we get a lot of credits and whatnot, and then we have this ad for Hiram Walker Triple Sec, which I don't recommend, and honestly it's not that funny. And then we have this ad for a personal recorder radio, and then these very I don't know, you know, they're not unfashionable, but they're just this ad with this caveman in the background eyeing these comfortable shoes by Rockport. And then we open up with this full page ad for Dr. Detroit featuring Dan Aykroyd. Now apparently this was his first movie that came out since the death of John Belushi, and it stars his future wife Donna Dixon. He actually met and got married soon after this film. Never heard of this movie before. I had to look it up, and it doesn't look very good in my opinion. But if you guys have seen it, let me know. I got table of contents, and right here, classic way to care for your records. This disc washer velvet brush, especially from this era, is you know, people seek these out because they don't make them like this anymore. Really high quality stuff. I actually have all these components, this stylus cleaner with a mirror, this brush, which I'm not sure what that's for, honestly, if you guys know. And then I do have these two bottles. They're both empty now, but yeah, really cool to see that ad. And then we have a Casio full page color ad. We get some updates on various articles from previous Rolling Stone issues. And then here we have a Gibson string ad, which these prices seem very high for 1983. I can't remember. I mean, it's been a long time since I bought guitar strings, but I feel like they were like 2 for $20. And so geez, this just seems kind of high, but you guys can correct me. Let me know. And then we have letters to the magazine commenting. These are organized by what they're in reference to, the different ads of previous Rolling Stone articles. And then we have this Michelob Light ad. Man, that's such classic photography right there. It's funny too. Look at this guy's, I guess it's a guy. This guy's fingernails, like this one, you know, you have some nice nails here, but then this one's really cut very close. Just fascinating, like today that wouldn't fly. And then full page spread for Camel cigarettes. That's pretty cool. Yeah, take some time out on your beachcombing adventure and smoke some Camel Lights. And then this is funny, Crown Royal. It's as we've been saying, you couldn't find a better whiskey if you stood on your head. This is a really interesting, well, I don't know if it's that interesting, but it talks about President Reagan and how there's a movie coming out about his life and whatnot. And then we have more national affairs, I guess what's going on in politics. You know, I kind of glossed over that section. And here, this is kind of funny. This is, you know, you got a blank tape ad kind of cashing in on the Beatles, Strawberry Fields Forever, and just how like lifelike it sounds. I'm not too good on cassette tapes, but maybe that's a good one, maybe it's not. You guys can let me know. Got a camera ad, and then you have an article on Peter, I'm not going to say his name right, but you guys can read it. He was in Animal House. I think he still works today, actually, but it's an article about him. Look at these Lee Jean ads right there. That's pretty funny. Yeah, and then you have more of his acting work. Again, a full page ad for alcohol right there. And then here we got David Bowie. So this was written by Kurt Loder. And Kurt went down to Sydney, Australia to meet up with David Bowie I think right when Let's Dance was coming out, or right before it came out, and he was filming two music videos for it, Let's Dance and China Girl. And so he talks a lot about that. And there's a Marlboro ad. What's funny to me though is in the article it mentions specifically that David is drinking Foster's beer, which I always get, like, here in America, especially at this time, or maybe a little bit after this, like in the mid to late 80s, they were really advertising Foster's, Australian for beer. So like I grew up thinking like a Foster's is like the beer in Australia, but apparently even to, like, I don't know about then, but I know today it's really looked down upon. It's almost like Bud Light or Budweiser, Coors, like it's just kind of like a cheap beer. But I just think it's funny that you can even see him holding the can right there in this photo. What really stuck out to me with this article is David Bowie's 36 at this time, which is pretty much how old I am. And I don't know if you've done this, but you know, I go through life and I think of these people like David Bowie and, you know, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and like it's, you know, they're like these mythical, iconic people, and sometimes I forget or I don't think of them as human. And then when I put myself in their age, like when I read about them, it's almost like, wow. You know, I look at my own life and how the trajectory that I went, and I like think about like, wow, so he had already accomplished all these things was, you know, as you know, Space Oddity and Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane and all these things, and like the Thin White Duke era before now, and he was just, you know, hitting his commercial peak in a way with Let's Dance. And it's just like, wow, how interesting to put myself, you know, I think about my life and compare it to his life. I mean, not to say I'm disappointed at all in my life, but it's just, you know, all of a sudden I have this frame of reference. And at this point, he has an 11-year-old son. In the article, his name is Joey, but of course, we know him as Duncan Jones, the film director. But yeah, and it's just, you know, it's Bowie, very candid, talking about where he is in life and, like, you know, having a kid and what that's like, and then thinking about the future and wanting to make a difference, wanting to leave the world in a better place. He talks about how short of time we have on this planet. Very intimate article. You know, I never really thought of Kurt Loder as much more than the MTV news anchor, but it's really well written. And you know, I'm kind of sad to say that I haven't read more about more of Kurt's work, but I'm very impressed with the way this is put together and just how much of a portrait we got. You know, I think that says a lot about Kurt putting the subject at ease. And it also talks about movies coming up. I think he had just shot The Hunger with Tony Scott, which is a fantastic film. And he talks about this other movie he's working on. It was something called, I can't find it right now, but it's Merry Christmas something. He shot it in the somewhere in the South Pacific. Here you can get a picture of Joey with his dad. Pretty cool. And he just talks about how much he loves Australia, but he's sort of saddened by the level of racism that he sees all around. And so, you know, he talks about that and how he wants to make a difference. And that's what a lot of the inspiration for those two music videos were. Oh, I'm going to get sidetracked here for a second, but this is so cool. Centipede, one of my favorite arcade games. I grew up with the Atari 5200, and there it is right there. And this is all about entering in a contest to be flown to San Francisco to compete in the U.S. Centipede Championship. That's pretty freaking cool. You could also win a trip to Munich, Germany to represent the United States in the Atari World Championships. This is, yeah, I'm not sure how that even happened, who won. I'm sure some of you know all about it. And down here it gives you photo tips and stuff. But man, just so cool to see this. Definitely, I missed out on this. And I still have this. Actually, I still have my 5200 and the trackball. Great peripheral for Centipede and for Breakout. It's almost necessary to play those games. But anyway, moving on. Let's see. Oh yeah. It's Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Anyway, it goes into a lot of detail of behind the scenes of making these videos, which I think is pretty cool. Oh yeah, and I should probably talk back here. Yeah, he talks about regretting that Melody Maker article where he said, I was bisexual. I mean, David looking back says, no man, I was just experimenting. And so I guess in some ways this article was meant to set the record straight that no, David Bowie's, he's not a transvestite, as this also goes into. He's not that. He's never been someone to be in drag. He's just experimenting and loves to explore art and have experiences, but no, he's straight. And he talks about not liking being married. He talks about not remembering 1975 at all, and just how leaving America was probably the best thing for him. So yeah, I really recommend you guys reading this article. Gives you a nice portrait of the man, kind of, you know, not middle-aged, I'm not going to say that, but sort of reflecting on his career, and he's right at the cusp of, you know, another rebirth, if you will, that the 80s Bowie that I think a lot of people remember almost more than, say, like the Ziggy Stardust glam era, and definitely more so his later work. Even though he continued to do fantastic work, I feel like after this period, you know, this was the commercial peak of Bowie. These are so funny. Occasionally I'll see one of these sort of lovingly restored in LA, but most of the time you just don't see this kind of motorcycle. This is hilarious to me because this sort of pre-mixed cocktail is like all the rage right now, and I had no idea it totally existed back in the 80s, and now it's just, you know, everything that is old is new again, basically. I didn't read this article. It's all about ballet with, I can't say that guy's name, but you guys get the picture. This is a weird article. I kind of skimmed through it, but it's all about climate change, but it's looking at it as if, you know, at this time they were convinced we were due for a new ice age. So it was the opposite of how we think today. So basically it's talking about climate change, but more so how things are going to get much, much colder. And then it, like, here's a prediction of New York City. It's going to have overrun with penguins and all this ice and snow in 1987. So oh, this is cool. I would have loved to have won this Porsche. These things are coming back, very collectible. Pick one. If you're in the market, I'd say pick up a 928 because they're going to be the next, like, very valuable Porsche, believe it or not. But yeah, Cools. I think they still make those cigarettes. Oh yeah, look at that funny Walkman ad. Okay, it's not a Walkman, a personal stereo. Anyway, but yeah, it's weird because as these articles, like from the future, September 23rd, 1987, May 23rd, 2003, it talks about United States senators having to use boats to get to Congress. It's just like, what? You know, this one from 1999, New York speed skating marathon draws 100,000 on ice. So it's just, it's fascinating that even back then we're talking about climate change, but it was like a little off the mark here. Get a Suzuki ad, and then we get this movie ad for Breathless, which I've never heard of. If you guys have seen it, let me know. And then this is a whole article on this woman I had never heard of. It is Ginny Fote, and apparently she she murdered a couple guys, and so it goes into all that. It's weird how we don't hear about her today. And then there you go, Seagram's in 7. Oh, that got a Pac-Man cabinet right there. And then you got a full page ad for more cigarettes. This time it's Newport. And this is interesting. Like, I've never, like, luggage ads we see all the time, but not for these like little travel kits. Yeah, like these, I feel like they just give them away these days. Still that same article on that woman. And then we have this, which I thought was hilarious, a Frisbee ad. Like, you never see that. I mean, it really was such a big thing at that time. Get another alcohol ad. This is a weird Budweiser ad. I don't really get it. It feels like it's a little too close to drinking and driving. Like, I don't think that would fly today. Like, it's just a weird setup, right? You got a speed bike with a sidecar and these beers coming off, and this guy's like, ooh, I gotta get me one of those. I don't get it. I guess they're parked, but still. And then we have a movie review of The Outsiders. Great film. And more movie reviews. Another cigarette ad. This is kind of interesting. It's sort of like what's going on, almost like a gossip column. This is interesting. You have George Harrison and Jay Giles teaming up for this celebrity car race in Long Beach. I thought that, man, if there was any footage of that. This is really interesting too. So it talks about Bruce Springsteen recording his next album and how he's kind of bulking up and he stopped eating junk food and he's exercising. But what's interesting is that it's not named here, but this would be his big album, Born in the USA. Fascinating. And he says he's played a couple tracks to like his friends Bob Seger. He says he'd like to tour, but it depends on the record. I don't have much control over that myself. Just got to wait till the record feels right. And then it talks about a Prince concert playing. I think he was touring for 1999 at this time. Talks about, it was Rod Stewart in financial trouble. Meatloaf is in financial trouble. This actor dude, Vincent Spano, talks about Karen Allen getting passed over for the sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then you have, Michael Jackson with the Jackson 5 right there. Talks about John Belushi's death and how there's now a murder charge against Kathy Smith. Very interesting little piece right there. And again, more kind of gossipy stuff. Kind of talks about Bob Dylan, and you have Belinda Carlisle. You got Christy Brinkley and Billy Joel. I love this run, by the way. Mount Gay, Eclipse, still make it. I don't know if it's as good as it was back then, but it's a really good mixing rum. And you got Rolling Stone t-shirts. You got Sean Penn. This is funny. Dos Equis beer ad. This is cool. So you have Duran Duran, and this is an article about their appearance on SNL and how there's all these screaming girls waiting for them to exit the studio. And then it goes into like a whole biography on the band, which I was really impressed with. I was not expecting that. And this also touches on how they I don't think they re-recorded, but they remixed several of the tracks off of Rio for when it came over to the US. And I've noticed that there are differences depending on what pressing you have. And so this is right when Rio came out, I think about a year afterwards. And so they're still riding on the success of that album and just how, Capitol gave them that freedom to like make the record they wanted to make it better, basically. So this whole article goes on for a while, but it talks about how, charity concerts are becoming a new thing and how it's kind of controversial. Are artists only doing it for the tax benefits? Are they really doing it because they care, or is it for public image? So it kind of goes into all of that. Look at this boombox, $269. This reel-to-reel tape, $488. I wouldn't say these have held their value. I feel like you can still get one for like $500 in working condition. And then you have another car stereo right there. Continuation of the Duran Duran ad. You get an ad for Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Yeah, it was a pay TV concert. Interesting. Another car stereo ad. Oh, this is interesting right here. So Peter Brown had just released his book. What's it called? The Love You Make, an Insider Story of the Beatles. And so he, for a long time, was Brian Epstein's assistant at the Nemes Corporation. And so he knew the Beatles and Brian very intimately, and he broke the story of, I didn't even realize this, but John and Brian had a sexual encounter and what that was all about. And so it was kind of a tell-all book. It made waves at this time because I don't think anything quite this detailed had ever come out, especially one that painted the Beatles in a way that was maybe less than favorable. So this is an interview with him talking about, you know, how much money he made working for the Beatles, how far back did he go with them. Very interesting read. Another thing that he talks about too is how George Harrison seduced Ringo Starr's first wife, and Paul McCartney has an adult illegitimate son. Oh, and it also states that Paul overdubbed many of Ringo's drum tracks. So yeah, it was kind of a scandalous book, but it did have the approval of the Beatles. So I haven't read it. I should probably pick it up. If you guys have read it, let me know what you think. Right here, there's a little blurb about how the RCA Corporation has acquired 50% of Arista Records, and it talks about how it's now consolidated into 6 giants, and now I think there's only 2 or 3 at this point. And then here we have an ad to learn how to record. We have an obituary for B. Mitchell Reed, who was a famous regional DJ personality. I had never heard of him. If you guys have heard of him, let me know. Got a Honda motorcycle ad right there. Look at this amazing Plymouth Turismo 2.2. This thing is amazing. I don't think I've ever seen one of these in real life. I almost thought it was a Mustang at first because it has a very, at least to me, a very similar profile, but that was kind of the look at this time. And then we just have more of that charity article across the top there. Another cigarette ad. Man, there's so many. And then we have a bunch of, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reviews of reggae music. And, you know, I was just watching Weekend at Bernie's, and it reminded me how much of reggae was all the rage at this time. So this makes total sense to go into these albums. Although I will say, like, I don't know any of these artists, to be honest, and maybe that's my own fault. But there is, you know, there's so much music. This is kind of funny though. Right here we have an ad for the famous piano tie, which I love. It's only keyboard tie. It's $6.50. And then down here we have apply now for your Alien Express Interplanetary Travelers Kit. This is amazing. It's only $9.95 plus $1.50 for postage, and you get a travel guide, map to outer space with vinyl carrying case, and a 100% cotton t-shirt featuring the Alien Express logo. You get a handy briefcase travel pack, and you also get an interplanetary credit card. Welcome throughout the galaxy. I would have bought that as a kid, no doubt. I totally would have bought that. I wonder if you can even find that on eBay. And then we have more record reviews of bands I've never heard of. You get a Canadian, what is this, Canadian liqueur? I've never heard of Yukon Jack. I've heard of the Potatoes. You get a review by Loudon Wainwright III. You get Bananarama review. You get this, and right here you get a precursor to the Bowflex called the Solo Flex. And another beer ad. And then we have a lot of other reviews. This one's interesting. They gave Eliminator by ZZ Top 3 stars. And I think that's like one of their better albums from this era. I think it sold incredibly well. It's got songs like Sharp Dressed Man, Give Me All Your Lovin'. I don't know if I own it. I might own a copy of it, but to me it's one of those classic 80s ZZ Top albums. And then we have 2 stars for Cuts Like a Knife by Bryan Adams. I admit I don't know the album very well. Maybe that's appropriate. I don't know. Right here, this is really interesting. It's the chart for, the top 50 albums for this week. And at number 1 is Men at Work, Business as Usual, which is interesting because I don't feel like anybody talks about that record anymore. Right below, you have Michael Jackson's Thriller, then you have Rio by Duran Duran, H2O by Hall & Oates, Journey, Styx, Pink Floyd, The Final Cut, U2, War, Culture Club, Lionel Richie, Bob Seger, Def Leppard, Pyromania, Pete Townsend, Scoop, Eric Clapton, Money and Cigarettes, Toto with 4, Dexy's Midnight Runners, Earth, Wind & Fire, Joe Jackson, Night and Day, Thomas Dolby, Stray Cats, Built for Speed, Missing Persons, Berlin, Prince, 1999, which I was surprised it was only at 23. It's a great album. Hello, I Must Be Going by Phil Collins, Roxy Music, Ultravox, which is another band no one really talks about. Bryan Adams, Cuts Like a Knife at 27, Golden Earring, Christopher Cross, Thompson Twins, Greg Kihn. I don't like Greg Kihn. English Beat, Dire Straits, David Bowie, Let's Dance, which debuted here at 34. Nick Lowe, Triumph, The Tubes, Pat Benatar, Van Morrison, ABC, Lexicon of Love, Marvin Gaye, Midnight Love, great album. The Ramones, Subterranean Jungle, Randy Newman, Tom Petty, Simple Minds, Modern English, Sammy Hagar, Scandal with Scandal, Echo and the Bunnymen, and Thomas Dolby. So, whoa, Thomas Dolby has 2 albums on here. Crazy. The Golden Age of Wireless and Blinded by Science. I feel like that was an EP, though. Then we have more, finishing up the articles, continued on kind of a thing. And then, what is this? Oh, what? Dodge and Plymouth high-tech imports built by Mitsubishi Corp, Master Car Builders Japan. Weird. What are these? Challenger and Sapporo. More standard equipment than okay. Wow. Never heard of these cars. I wonder if anyone still has these. Another cigarette ad. And then we have electronics section. This is interesting. I never heard of this, but they have these things called speed up kits. So basically, speed up kits speed up the game to make it harder, but to also speed up turnover so that the arcade owner gets more money. Nintendo has recently introduced a speed up kit for its popular Donkey Kong game. So I didn't realize that manufacturers were actually making this themselves. I always thought I thought maybe it was more of a third party thing, but Nintendo made one. That's crazy. It talks about adding a keyboard to your Atari 2600 to turn it into a computer, which I seriously doubt the capabilities of that. And then we have, how to talk to your computer, how that's becoming a thing. And I'm sure it was very arcane at this time. And then you have classified advertising. Lots of really interesting things. You have collector's items, an entire Beetle collection from Butcher to Gold. Excellent opportunity. $2 for a catalog. Crazy. Comic books, fads. This is hilarious. Exotic, glossy G-string bikini. $12.50 each. Small, medium, and large, any color. And then you have skulls, super real, cast directly from a human skull. Smoking, snuff accessories, fabulous fart record, hilarious singing birthday card, incredibly funny music and real farts with pictorial greetings from the singing assholes. What? Home video, they have concert videos, jobs available, instructions, how to be a recording engineer, that sort of a thing. Oddly enough, there's several fireworks ads. Who would buy fireworks over the mail? Kind of crazy. Musicians looking for other musicians. And then you have movie posters. And then psychics, the occult. There's several ads for the occult. Kind of crazy. Witchcraft's power secrets. Then you have a whole bunch of records and tapes, buy from these people. They'll send you a catalog. Yeah, another fireworks ad. You get shoes. You get that famous Marx and Lenin t-shirt right there. I guess this was a poster. You get these very 80s sunglasses, poetry contest, funny hats, leather jackets, tune your guitar. Another fireworks ad, sunglasses, Opus of Bloom County t-shirt. How to meet women of the 80s, how to make love to single women, how to pick up girls, shy person's guide to happier love life, 100 best opening lines, another fireworks ad, condoms by mail, just crazy stuff they're selling here. And then this is a continuation of that ballet director's article. And then here looks like an article, but it's really an ad for this box set of the Who records. I believe they were pressed in Germany, and it goes like all the way from the beginning to Who Are You? And it includes like the 44-page photo book with Quadrophenia and the Who Live at Leeds. It has all the extra ephemera that came with that album. What's funny though, they're selling it for $64.99. It's 11 records, and apparently originally sold for $164. I don't know, they just throw out that number, $164.99. But you can still buy this. You can go to Discogs right now and you can get one for around $150. So I don't know, I think it's held its value decently. This was like 1983. I'm not gonna do the math on that, but I'll probably do the calculation when I edit this. But anyway, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And then it's advertising some other collections you can pick up, like the complete Beatles collection, 14 LPs with original covers, only $99.99. And that itself goes for around $300. So, and then also has the Rolling Stones collection. It's their famous Decca recordings, and that goes for $74.99. And then you have a little obituary for Gloria Stavers, who I guess was the editor for 17 magazine for a long time. I've never read it. And then you have a Kahlua and coffee ad and another cigarette ad. So yeah, that is that. That is Rolling Stone issue 395. It's funny, I for some reason always thought it was only in the 90s that Rolling Stone started to branch out and to cover other things other than music, but looks like I was wrong, man. Like, it's been this way for a very long time. Like, the bulk of this magazine, yeah, there was album reviews, but it talked about politics, the arts, movies, and of course, music. So anyway, let me know if you have any memories of this particular issue or your favorite Rolling Stone memories in general. Let me know with a comment below. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Hey everybody, thanks again for watching this video. Now, if you want to see that other video I was talking about, I did something similar with Goldmine Magazine, and you can click right there, as well as a video that YouTube will choose for me.